Who's heard of fascia? Who knows what fascia is enough to explain it to your son or daughter in the basic way?
I could give it a shot.
Yeah,
So to me, fascia is the encasing of the body. It encases all the organs and it holds the body up as a structure. And it's like if you were to pull out all the bones and all the muscles and all the fluids, you would have a skeleton of a person. Or if you were to pull out the fascia and leave everything else, you would turn into a puddle.
yeah, beautiful. Period.
Period. Yeah,
Okay.
that's all I got.
Yeah.
That's,
Did anybody
that's
hear
all of my
anything?
science education in a
That
nutshell.
that's beautiful. Did anybody hear anything about functionality in that, or metabolism, or any kind of import? Doesn't sound like a very, other than a structural support, doesn't sound like very important, right?
Oh, it's actually very crucial, well, crucial to the body, right?
Mhm.
Um, I know that, I don't know why exactly, but I know it's crucial to the body.
Yeah.
And that restrictions in the fascia cause lots and lots of problems in the body.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different metaphors we can use here in the world of regenerative medicine. And one of the reasons I vibed very strongly with David just 5 years ago. This is a very recent addition to my career. Eye-opening, thank God. Uh, and he speaks the language of regenerative, but he speaks it in the language of uh, cycle and recover back to center from degeneration. Right? We make 500 billion cells every 24 hours. We let go of, we destroy 500 billion cells too. And the body, having what I call metabolic flexibility, has a triage and makes a decision as to who's not pulling their weight, right? Which cells go. And some of those are slackards and they're past their prime, and some of them are troublemakers and have made a mistake, right? And all of that has to do with a competent community of cells, 100 trillion cells, all different kinds, working together, harmonizing together. And so, and so in that space, fascia would be, this might sound strange, especially to scientists, uh, and they're coming at me this way, so I'll be careful. Uh, there is an energetic reality, and you might even call it a divine reality to the quote structure of fascia, right? Energetic. So Melanie works in opening the meridians in the body, which up until recently people didn't realize were actually a structure. Uh, and we now know that they are nanocollagen and they're structural carriers of a lot of the micronutrients and minerals and salts that the body needs much in a much faster way. It's almost a quantum leap. One part of the body, uh, trace the eons meridian again, the way you did
Oh yeah, so
before.
he's got an Eon patch on, and that one's for inflammation, balancing the nervous system, and it's on the large intestine, on the large intestine 4, which is the source point, meaning like the point on the meridian that kind of activates and puts energy into that meridian to open it up. And so it starts at the tip of the pointer finger and then it moves up through kind of the exterior side of the body, and then it moves up through the elbow crease, goes up through the deltoid, and then it comes up through the clavicle, through the center of the clavicle, up through the side of the neck, through the jaw, and then it comes in the side of the mouth, and then it travels over the lip and lands on the opposite side. So it actually kind of crisscrosses, and there's a point where it ends and exits called beautiful fragrance, is a Chinese um, translation. And so you can actually put pressure here and open up that meridian and open up your sinuses. And in the same way, you can actually massage this point, and other points on that meridian are doing different functions, not just connected to the large intestine, but connected to the where this channel is moving through the body, and also through the tissues that it's moving through.
Yeah. Yeah, so what if they wouldn't teach you this in biochemistry or even even in physiologic medicine, medical physiology. But if the body needs sodium phosphate here, other side, and that meridian's open, it happens like that. And they know this now. It's faster than the nervous system, faster than neuromuscular, faster than, and so we're characterizing that. And you don't need to know anything about this, by the way. This is our fun little open conversation to understand what David does. But he did the clinical trials. David Schmidt, who's the inventor and founder of LifeWave, 25 years ago began clinical trials and worked on meridians points. So that's where we can legally say that the technologies work because that's where the clinical trials were done. And then over the years, he's perfected his outlook. But a lot of what I do personally and what Melanie and I are interested in collaborating on is I'm graduating out of working in microbiome and functional medicine work, gut health. Gut health equals brain. You guys want me to give a basic definition of microbiome?
Sure.
Because I think that's part of the exciting putting conscious communities together all over the world is what we do inside every day. And we don't pay attention to it. It happens without our knowledge. So micro, small, biota is life. The collection, the fingerprint of other life forms in the body is called the microbiome. And it's not just in the gut. We talk a lot about the gut. It's in every orifice. It's at every interface. It's at your respiratory linings. There's a different microbiome in the mouth and the nostrils. And the interface dynamics with the planet are based on those biofilms. There's a certain personality to a microbiome. And what goes along with it is an energetic and chemical biofilm it's a divine interface of some sort that they haven't characterized yet in light physics, but these biofilms are the interaction that's the ocean up there floating around, right? That's a vapor that at some point will find its way back to mama, right? And that's kind of what the biofilms are. They're the permission for the body to actually derive a structure, if you will. I've never even said that out that way before. But and 99% of the DNA in the human body is not Homo sapien DNA. It's microbiome. It's little critters, millions of them, and we've probably not characterized most of them. We think we know, but bacteria, virus, fungus, parasites, other things that we'll probably discover at some point. And to the extent that they reflect your local, I'm a fan of eating dandelions from my backyard. I live on the Monocacy River, and to the extent that I can interface with my local petri dish, better. And if you can eat happy things that grew up happily from your environment, that's the best you can go. So there's a reason hunters and gatherers were healthy, and none of these things that we call modern disease existed, right? They were interfacing all day, and so why am I going down this road?
Well, I'm curious what the relationship between the microbiome and the fascia is.
Yeah. So once we create this biofilm flexibility, then you've got a permission for open channels, open communication. Just as a parenthetical, I'm an MS specialist, so newly diagnosing a patient now, I realized years ago, about 2 to 5 years before first diagnosis, and this can really go for any disease, that somebody's undergone a major trauma of some sort to create a dysbiosis. A dysbiosis is what's nuclear war on the microbiome. Major antibiotics, surgery, major trauma, major life shakeup, some sort of poisoning that has told the body to stop functioning the way it knows. So we were talking this morning about whether or not we even need exogenous once a person is energetically awake enough. Is there a need for exogenous intervention? Right? Do we even need food? There are breatharians. There are plenty of species who live without food for many of what we would call years, and yogis that take a breath every 12,000 years, those people.
I'm gonna make a quick point of contention to that.
Okay.
I think they're still eating, but just not through
Nice.
through matter,
Nice.
because they're still taking in light, they're still taking in the codes from the sun. So I think it begs the question for me is like, if those microbiota are open and functioning at their fullest capacity, is it possible to feed those nutrients in the body with light instead of with food at a certain point of function?
Beautiful.
And that can also translate to a consciousness level,
Yeah, beautiful.
because they're all part of the same ecosystem.
Say more.
As far as the body functioning at a certain efficiency and having a consciousness level and the ability to receive and communicate more information on a non-physical level and a greater remembrance. It's almost like it kind of reminds me of the nervous system, and it's like when you have the synapses of the nerves functioning at their efficiency, and then information, electricity can pass through faster, and there's a muscle impulse happens faster instead of like, I don't know, that maybe that's not a great example, but what I'm thinking is like, and I'm also speculating, and I'm also just asking the questions of like, okay, so if there's an expansion of consciousness, there's also a reflection of what's happening on the physical body. And if the microbiota and the fascia are open and mobile and flexible and able to pass nutrients in the form of light or nutrients in the form of food to establish the body's healthiest function, that all of those things are related. That there's a higher functioning in the body, more communication, faster communication, and a greater ability to perceive and understand extrasensory perceptions and the ability to communicate with non-physical faculties.
Wow. All right, so that's a very high level conversation.
Yeah.
That's a high level, but
That's the
that's
rabbit hole
where-
you were leading me down, so.
that's where it is.
Yeah.
And that's
Wow.
and that's possible. That's everything in there pointed to optimizing performance, right?
Right.
Optimizing cognitive performance, optimizing who we would be, who would we don't even know the menu of what's possible in human performance yet. We've been educated into our very small paradigms of this is the way you're supposed to age, and this is the way you're supposed to decline in function. And what if you actually could reverse aging? What if you could actually get back to, oh, I get anything I want on the playground? Having that 6-year-old mentality, spirituality, and courage. You're pointing to a spiritual courage of, okay, now I actually have a divine purpose here. Now, putting the physical body back in order, that connections are more intuitive, right? Physical contrast is more apparent. You get to a place where your senses are sharper and your ability to detect contrast, whether that be a change in your environment or a new impulse or a threat. In my world, that's called immune survey. And I think most people don't know that. Most people have tolerated diminishing some senses.
Mhm.
And what I've seen in the past few years is people stepping in, stories all over the globe of people stepping into a new capacity where they don't have to play the game that science told them to play, which is here's how you're supposed to age. Here's how you're supposed to decline.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to circle back to your first point of, if the microbiota is once in a healthy state and that person experiences trauma, environmental exposure, antibiotics, whatever it is, and it's in that nuclear war state within, how does one even start to lean back into balance?
Right.
And how does that impact the communication in the cells and in the fascia?
Yeah. Well, the first order of business is to stop eating fake and poison. That's hard for a lot of people. Um, who was talking about the neurodivergent communities earlier? Oh, yeah. Um, so let me just tell a story. I heard wide spectrum, spectrum disordered kids, severe head banging, locked in syndrome, the whole thing. You put a fecal transplant, healthy donor, fecal transplant, and 72 hours later, that's a normal child, is making eye contact and sensing the way that we would think is normal. So that's a shortcut, right? And taking out a tumor is a shortcut. I tell people when you take out the tumor, you haven't cured the cancer, you've taken out the evidence of the cancer. Yeah. And you still have to change the things that brought it out in the first place. So that's what the changes are: change in diet. And the first part is stop poisoning yourself with fake foods. If it doesn't, somebody said last month, if it doesn't decay and rot, it's not, you don't eat it. If it's not going to die and rot and become part of the biosphere again, don't eat it. And we've eaten a lot of stuff in the past century that's not food. And then to get more refined, the more local you can eat, the more variety you can eat. Uh, Prebiotic fiber is the uh, buffet that different bacterial species feast on, and different fibers have predilection for, or different bacteria have different preferences for different fibers. So eating a wide variety of fiber is a good idea. And even if you eat a wide variety, changing what you eat, shake up the snow globe, I call it. And then as raw as possible. I'm a big fan of raw dairy, raw and fermented. Um, you can get any dairy, cow, goat, sheep, cheese, kefir, these kinds of things accelerate the microbiome growth and sort of repopulation. I don't I don't think I need to go too far down that because it's,
Sure.
then it's micromanaging.
Right.
But a
Well,
lot of what we do here with these technologies is shortcut that. And Melanie asked a great question. Is that a good idea? Well, who's to say? That's right. Our our job is to maintain as much autonomy as possible, and this doesn't take off the table the need to make those changes that caused the trouble in the first place. And sometimes people aren't in trouble. Sometimes I was in great shape 5 years ago. Didn't think this was going to help. I wasn't in great shape 20 years ago. I was one of those doctors smoking who gray hair who looked miserable and was miserable. And luckily I stopped doing a lot of that stuff. And little by little, my normal color came back, and I was about as healthy as I had ever been when I first exposed to this. Almost immediately saw a benefit in my athletic work. Um, And then I started using it with my patients and integrating it, and have incredible stories that just keep flowing in. Has everybody been on Doc Talk?
It's my favorite thing.
Has
Watch it every Sunday night.
Has everybody else in the room been on Doc Talk or no?
No.
No?
Couple maybe.
Totally worth it, yes. Yeah.
Please come Sunday night, 7:30.
Well, I'm curious, so if the fascia is a carrier of these minerals and we are activating the GHK-copper peptide, and there are other peptides that are activated with different patches, but because we're focusing on the copper peptide, is there a special relationship with copper to the fascia?
Well,
Like, why is that one so
only
important?
to the extent that it is transported as well. The full peptide is not, but the micronutrients are. The building blocks of GHKs, glycine, lysine, and copper. And those micronutrients would be transported, which is a lot of why his nutrient, David's actually got a new nutrient coming out, powder that contains the building blocks for the body to put together that copper peptide. So you drink and swallow it, and it makes it to whatever tissue's hungry for the GHK. Yeah.
Is there any way that you can tell from like a physical symptom standpoint that like the actual health of the fascia? Is that something that we know how to do? Not just a
No,
diagnostic
not
test, but
objectively.
like I mean, like for me, I took a fascia class at the Y and it was pretty difficult for me. And like my flu was like 3 weeks in, it got really easy. And the only thing I had changed is wearing the X39 patch. So I was like, that's the only thing that I can assume is changing this. And it's like intuitively, I just knew that it was rebuilding my fascia. And I'm somebody like I've studied every system on earth. I've studied, science, anatomy, gone through 4 years of acupuncture and herbalism school. I had never been taught about the fascia and how it was impacting the body. And then like having experienced shock and trauma and literally my whole system locking down and becoming in a state of dysfunction, like this was pretty much one of the main tools that I used to get me back into a coherent state and back into my body. And I did fascia work. That was a huge piece. I used tuning forks on myself. So communicating through sound and frequency. And that's really what started bringing me even deeper into studying frequency medicine because I realized I could shortcut some of these diagnostic tools that I had learned previous because I was overcomplicating it. It was like I knew all these systems, and I'm like, how can I bring all of this knowledge together and build a foundation, but rely on a greater intelligence, you know? And I think the fascia, from like a scientific standpoint, is like kind of this bridge, like you said, between consciousness itself and maybe as a carrier of like information, not just on the mineral micronutrient level, but maybe even ether. I don't know. And like how we're creating through the fascia. And I mean, there are discussions too, and I'm going to offshoot a little bit on the relationship between, in 5 element acupuncture and 5 element theory, we study how the body is a microcosm of nature. It has the same cycles, each fluid in the body, each substance in the body mirrors different functions in nature. And this has been heavily studied for thousands of years, and how these cycles move through the body and how we can impact those cycles through diet, exercise, qigong, movements, meridian based therapies, all sorts of things, meditation practices. But one concept that was new to me recently is the idea that there's a relationship between the fascia and the mycelium of the earth. And the mycelium, are the communication networks underground of these little, mycelium are what? Like they're basically
Fungal
they're
roots.
fungal roots. Yeah, they're the
Mushroom
precursors
roots,
to
other
mushrooms.
fungus.
And
Well,
so
they're the brain of the topsoil.
yeah. And it's interesting to me though because I love mushrooms, like medicinal mushrooms, and like there are a lot of medicinal mushrooms like cordyceps and lion's mane and things that are like super tonics for supporting the nervous system function and communication. And it's like there must be another piece to that, the mushrooms, because of our relationship to the earth, is also communicating to the neural networks and the fascial networks. Have you researched that at all, or can you speak to that at all?
Not any better than you just did, that's all. Yeah.
I mean, I think this is the future of medicine. I think people are going to be studying this reflection of nature and looking at it through a scientific lens even more,
Yeah.
because as we're developing these insights of how we can feed our bodies, you know, with our with nutrients, with our thoughts, with our intentions, with light, and then geometry, frequency, sound, all of it, it's going to make what we thought we knew completely obsolete.
Yeah, so it's something like 20% of the mass of the planet is the mycelial invested topsoil or top layer. And there's a microbiome there as well. And there's a self-correcting personality or energetic reality to that brain slash personality, whatever that is, back to the biofilm idea, where that the mycelia knows something until we put the glyphosate on it, until we put the PFOS on it, until we say, no, you're not allowed to operate as a biological entity anymore. You can't come to the party anymore. Right. But they get around that too at some point. Mama Earth's gonna be fine. We might not be here, but she'll do just fine. And there's something magical about the mycelia that my world of neocortical I used to think was a reflection of the microbiome, and it's not, it pales in comparison. When if we could tap into the energetic realities of collective consciousness, which at the grandest scale that we know of is the mycelia, then we have instantaneous healing.
I have one last question for you in light of what you just shared. Do you have specific mushrooms that you recommend or like to use or have witnessed impacts people's ability to enhance the support of the GHK-copper activation?
Oh, I have not even investigated that, to tell you the truth. I don't know that. I'll take it as one of my projects. I need more projects. But again, variety. There and everybody's individual, everybody's different. So this is bio-individual, but a variety and personal. You get in the driver's seat and you personalize your journey. That's what's important, I think. That's gonna save people from a lot of the tyrannical right practitioners who know how to do it, right? There's no right or wrong. There's bio-individualized.
Right. Cool. Well, shall we open it up to questions? Or do you want to stretch and should we close it? Or how are you all feeling? Yeah.
I would wonder, because I'm familiar with the patches, but I know most people here aren't, if you could give a quick summary of the X39 and how it works with the anti-aging and the copper peptides and GHK.
Just help with the brain and the biome.
Yeah.
Fascia.
I'll start it off and then I'll hand it to you because you can explain it better than I can. So this has a lattice work of salts and crystals and sugars in a special geometry. And so the body emits light in the form of infrared light. And so it'll communicate within about 3 to 4 inches of the body, and it bounces the light in a specific wavelength back into the body, and that activates different biological responses. So with this particular patch, the X39, it activates the GHK-copper peptide, and that peptide has a million different functions that we don't even really talk about it very much, honestly, because it's just so vast. Like if you Google on like PubMed GHK-copper CU, you'll see a million different things that it does. But what we like to focus on is that it's actually activating the pluripotent stem cells. So those are stem cells that can turn into any other cell in the body. And the body's natural intelligence will actually direct which stem cells to turn on first and in what order to go about its healing process. So that's kind of a really cool thing about this, is that like you don't know what it's going to do. Like if you're working on shoulder pain and you may or may not notice a difference in your shoulder pain right away. You might notice your eyes brighten and your vision get better, or your skin, your old scars heal, or like your digestion improves. Like all these different things can happen, and so everybody's different. And the most important parts to getting the greatest efficacy out of this is drinking water, because hydration is key, and getting I think electrolytes is really helpful, and also getting some source of copper in your diet, which can be a copper supplement. Dark chocolate, liver is high source of copper, shellfish like shrimp, lobster, and if you Google vegetables with copper, there's a whole bunch. Did I cover it? There's plenty of other things with copper in it, but I'll pass the mic to you.
Yeah, I'll just say,
Ask a question.
Yeah, please.
You said it reflects the light. Did you mean your own light that you're emanating?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so you don't
Just
need
be sure it
light,
was
you don't need,
clear.
you can wear it in the dark and it's still reflecting your own body's light. It doesn't require any activation from any external source.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I use the term light in so many different ways.
Mhm.
So when you say light, can you clarify it in that context?
Yeah, so I mean, it's infrared light, so it's the body heat. So I guess it's kind of in a way metabolism. You know, if you were talking about light in this way, as a heat within that wavelength.
so everything
What would
that
you
we see that we think is physical reality is of frequency, right? Everything is in a vibratory frequency, and to the extent that those frequencies are assembled, we have what looks like a tissue, stable tissue, but there really is no such thing. We're constantly changing, constantly inside the frequencies. So the body's asking for something. The only thing I would add to the GHK is science has known that this particular peptide is important for about 100 years, but they can't put it in the body. It's got a very short half-life, so it disappears almost immediately. And that's what made this such a breakthrough 5 years ago, 6 years ago, was that it mirrors the body's own call to action for those stem cells. And nobody'd been able to do it, and David figured out how to do it and stabilize that call to action. But the frequency is, every cell in your body is vibrating playing a different note, right? And this the symphony of your spleen has one call to action, and the symphony of your liver has one call to action, and etc. And that's a lot of what GHK is responsive to, is those varieties of calls to action, without getting too pedantic about it.
That call to action would be both physical and spiritual and emotional.
That's a good question. Yeah, inside LifeWave's technology, we talk about physiological health, and David's very open about his spiritual pursuit. I personally, just my opinion is that a healthy body is hungry to have a spiritual life, whatever that means to you, and then you're open, then you're able to hear other conversations. But
I would like to add one thing
yeah,
on the frequency side of things. So the wavelength of light for the X39, that nanometer light is the translation of 432 hertz. And so in music theory, since ancient times, 432 has been like the standard of tuning instruments so that they're harmonically resonant with the human body. And so we know this now through modern science and research and sound healing research, that this frequency, is harmonic. And I think since like the 50s, maybe, I want to say, the standard for like radio music and rock and roll is tuning songs to 440. And so that's 440 is the A note. And so 432 would be the A note. And the rest of the scale is relative to that as a harmonic. And you can actually listen to things that are tuned to 432 hertz, and it feels like your body can relax, and you can actually feel the harmony happening in your cells, as opposed to listening to something that is tuned to 440 or another scale. So I think that's just one of the other magical things that I only picked up that factoid when I heard David speaking one time, and I was like, no way, I've been studying this, I've been doing tuning forks. But it's like it's literally cueing the body to harmonize. Let's close the circle, and if we want to grab any other snacks, drinks, go pee, go outside, get some sunshine. I think we talked a lot longer than 15 or 20 minutes. So thank you for listening. And this was really kind of fun just to talk about this topic. And such a wonderful opportunity to have Dr. Tom here, to talk about this, because it's not every day that we get a specialist to talk about a very unusual topic that is, I think, going to be at the forefront of light therapy and our medical system, and how we're understanding consciousness and our health, in the coming years and decades. So thank you so much. Thank you, everybody
Thank you
here.
for your courage to have the conversation that way too.
Yeah.
Because one of the things Melanie and I have been talking about this past month is how to have a little bit more of an organic conversation than what is the normal science conversation. And that's what excites me is practitioners finding new voice. Like you're a very courageous voice in crafting that, and that's what it's going to take, I think, is we're at the right place at the right time, because even though this company's been around for 20 years, this is just the beginning. And David's bringing out new technologies that are really going to go well beyond physical comfort and safety and performance, and actually address global problems, global ecosystem problems.